Why does it seem like we have the attention spans of goldfish? Like, seriously, the news is just emblematic of the fact that we as humans are incapable of focusing on more than one thing at a time. And the one thing we focus on appears to have a very pathetic shelf life, if we're being honest. Issues that matter get into the news very often. I'll give the media that. Like, I'll give credit where credit's due. We talk about it sometimes. It's not like they grossly overlook things that are going on, which, by the way, I'm not saying that doesn't happen on occasion, because there are definitely some instances where we just ignore things completely. But that's a whole other issue. See, Black Lives Matters has gotten its coverage, the Time's Up and Me Too movements got their due, and now enough is enough, and other protests about gun violence are seeing their time in the media, which is very, very much needed and very overdue. But how come it seems that these issues never seem to stay prominent? See, Black Lives Matter only seems to come up when another unarmed black person is killed. Time's Up and Me Too have somehow faded into the distance now that award show season is over, and awareness about gun violence is only stressed when another tragedy happens. It's true, we almost never talk about it other than that, when we're provoked. Why does it take so much provocation and so much ugliness in our world for us to actually pay attention? This is why not only the media needs to be questioned, but also us as a society. We've become so conditioned as to just expect bad things to happen, so it takes extremities to actually get our attention. That's sad. How come we can only handle one movement at a time? Progress is being put on hold for some reason. We are to blame for that. We can't keep moving forward if we can't focus on one thing, more than one thing at a time, which it seems that we just aren't able to do. It seems like we've never been able to do that, honestly. And we put so many topics on hold by using other things to distract us, things that we then refuse to talk about. The distractions are then used to just completely derail us from the facts. For instance, since gun control is the quote-unquote flavor of the month in the media following the Parkland shooting, and not to mention all the other shootings that have transpired since then, mental health has come up a lot. To say it has come up a lot is a loaded statement, because yes, it has been referenced a lot, but it's not actually been discussed in depth. Honestly, it never has, especially with regards to gun violence. The term guns don't kill people, people kill people is perhaps one of the most disgusting atrocities in the common culture today. With this statement, we put off the clear fact that guns most certainly do kill people by blaming it solely on someone who is mentally disturbed. And that's where it stops. We don't actually dive into these people who are killing people, because Americans and people in general have always had a distaste for discussing mental health. Depression, anxiety, schizophrenia, bipolar disorder, and so many more seemingly swept under the proverbial carpet. This is something that has been going on forever. Not just now, but forever. We almost never talk about it. There's even a stigma about going to therapy because people don't want to be known as crazy. No, mental health is deemed taboo, so we avoid talking about it as much as possible, honestly. But our avoidance isn't fixing the problem, but rather it's fortifying the stigma that surrounds mental health in general. We're being taught so many different things in our schools, but mental health has never been on the agenda. We've never actually dived into it, and it makes me very, very sad, because there are lots of people who are going to graduate knowing nothing about it, knowing nothing about how there are so many different forms of anxiety, so many different forms of depression. It's not just what you're seeing on TV or what you have in your mind. It's not just something that is surface level. There's many, many different forms and different kinds. There are different treatments, but not all work. Some things you can't get rid of, and mental health is one of those things. So maybe it's just the fact that it scares us because we don't know anything about it. And then it's a vicious cycle, because we're never going to learn anything about it because we never want to talk about it. Kids are taught so often to just ignore it, that it doesn't matter. It does matter. In the real world, there are so many people, not only just in America, but all over the world, who have mental health problems, and they're just being ignored. So then they're forced to suffer in silence, and we do nothing about it until we want to bring them up when someone does something horrible. Why does it take someone doing something so disgusting and ugly and horrific, then we finally just give it the passing glance that it needs? We need to take a step back and actually look further into these things. Things being taboo doesn't mean that we can just never talk about them, that we can never really discuss them. People aren't learning, and it's just creating blank spots and blind spots in our education and what we know as a people. We're so focused on everything else going on, then the fact that we can only hold one thing in our head constantly in our minds is a problem, but we're just making ourselves less empathetic to other human beings. We're putting them in a bubble that we just want to put off till later. We'll talk about it later, but that time never comes. When are we actually going to do something? When are we actually going to step outside, pop the bubble, and start dealing with this thing? It's ridiculous. Stigma is something that's ugly, and it just doesn't make any sense to me. There's still so much that I don't know, and there's so much that I don't understand. But we've just never discussed it. It doesn't seem right that there are just so many people who are just being ignored for no real reason other than the fact that we ourselves don't feel like talking about it or making ourselves uncomfortable in some way, shape, or form. That's ridiculous. Our comfort is not a matter, it does not matter at this point.